Good morning. Hey, folks. This is the Morning Buzz. You can always text in at 309-451-9299. And you can see me live in studio. I am on Facebook Live. You can go to Cities 92.9 on Facebook and see me live in studio and watch my show prep in real time. You can see all of the articles that I'm pulling. You can see all of the election results that I will be rambling off here for you. Coming up, I am going to be digging into Brandon Johnson and how Chicago, they just traded out Lori Lightfoot for another socialist mayor. So, and I think, in my opinion, Brandon Johnson is much worse. Also, I've got this story about Wisconsin, this flip, the Wisconsin Supreme Court. I think that everybody is ignoring this, and this is probably one of the biggest stories, period, full stop. And nobody is really talking about it because we're all focused on the Trump indictment. So I think that it's important for us to understand what happened in Wisconsin. First off, I do want to play this little clip that was put together. It's Donald Trump. And look, folks, this is not the end. Every election, I'll get behind this mic. I'm going to keep telling you to keep pushing forward, keep having courage, and keep being an outsider and wear that name, uh, outsider, as a badge of honor. Because the more they start to attack you, the more they start to say, well, you're wrong. And the more a corrupt system says that you're wrong, you're probably over the target. So let's take a listen here to this audio.
Your probe into the Russia collusion hoax.
President Trump has just been impeached on both Article 1 and...
The only president of the United States to be impeached for a second
January
time.
6th committee releasing its final 845-page report.
Former President Donald Trump has been indicted.
Remember this: nothing worth doing ever came easy. Following your convictions means you must be willing to face criticism from those who lack the same courage to do what is right. Relish the opportunity to be an outsider. Embrace that label. Being an outsider is fine. Embrace the label. Because it's the outsiders who change the world and who make a real and lasting difference. The more that a broken system tells you that you're wrong, the more certain you should be that you must keep pushing ahead.
This is a party that wants an outsider badly.
I continue to believe Mr. Trump will not be president.
You must keep pushing forward. Never, ever give up. There'll be times in your life you'll want to quit, you'll want to go home. I can't do it. I can't do it. Just never quit. You will build a future where we have the courage to chase our dreams no matter what the cynics and the doubters have to say. You will have the confidence to speak the hopes in your hearts and to express the love that stirs your souls. And you will have the faith to replace a broken establishment with a government that serves and protects the people. They're not coming after me, they're coming after you. I'm just standing in their way.
And folks, that was Donald Trump, a cut, really, of Donald Trump and how he says not to give up. There's going to be times in your life when you want to give up, don't. And wear the name outsider as a badge of honor. I just wanted to share that with you this morning. This is the Morning Buzz, and we're going to get into Chicago, how Chicagoans elected yet another socialist mayor, Brandon Johnson. I've got clips from him. But first, I wanted to give you the results here of the election last night. Just some preliminary results. I've got them pulled up here. Stan Nord, prayers for the Nord family. I mean, he really has fought hard for we the people, and that was a tough race for me to see Stan lose. He lost Kathleen Lorenz, Andy Byers, Karen Smith. They are all going to be town councilmen in and when they're sworn in next. So they're going to be your councilmen. We also have uh, the school board candidates for Unit 5. That's Brad Worth, Amy Jetta, and Dennis Frank, along with Molly Emery. They lost to Kelly Pyle, Amy Roser, Mark Adams, and Alex Williams. They all lost. And then we also had that Unit 5 tax referendum, which was big election item this go around. That one, that the yeses have it. You can see here, 59% of the vote went to the yeses and 40% of the vote went to the noes. And what's interesting there is that this was 6 months ago where you said, no, I don't want my taxes to go up. And they had time. They had time to redirect everybody and scare you and instill some sort of fear into you that your kids' sports were going to be taken away. The orchestra, the band, it was all going to be taken away. And they had that time to instill fear into you and to make those cuts and to try to lie and push out this lie that, there was going to be no more sports, and to push out this lie that actually the tax increase is a tax decrease. That's the first time ever, right? Where, in black and white, you can see that you're voting for a forever tax increase. And at the same time, they'll tell you that no, your taxes aren't going to go up because of these building bonds. Those are falling off and you're actually going to have some tax relief. Yeah, well, in 2 years, when those building bonds, are done falling off, then you are going to be left holding the bag and you're going to be paying a lot more in taxes. But that's the way you voted. That's the way McLean County voted. So those are the results for you. Now, I do want to switch gears here, and I do want to talk about Brandon Johnson and the Chicago mayoral race, because people just keep voting for their own suffering. That's the bottom line here, folks. That's what this is. And Tuesday's night's election results, both here in McLean County and in Chicago, people are either still asleep at the wheel or they really enjoy living broke or in crime-ridden cities. These blue cities, they must really like being miserable. So we've got Brandon Johnson coming out, and he won. And folks, I want to run through this because Paul Vallis, the guy who's running against him, totally not a liberal, or totally not a MAGA Republican. This guy's not a Republican. He's a leftist. Paul Vallis is a leftist. He's not even a moderate Democrat. I see some people saying that, oh, he's a moderate Democrat. No. Paul Vallis is a leftist. He was endorsed by the Chicago Police Union. Now, Brandon Johnson, he got all of his money from the Chicago Teachers Union. So even though failed Mayor Lori Lightfoot was ousted by the voters and she didn't get into the runoff, I mean, this is worse. I think that Brandon Johnson is worse. He makes Lori Lightfoot look like Donald Trump. I'm not kidding you. Like, he makes Lori Lightfoot look conservative. So people are saying that Paul Vallis, ran against this Brandon Johnson and that, he was a moderate Democrat. He's really not a moderate Democrat, but he was relatively a conservative choice. I will say that. And he campaigned on this anti-crime platform. And I was like, yeah, go Paul Vallis. That is the thing that is affecting Chicago right now. I told you before in our newscast that over 50 people were shot in Chicago, 4 of them fatally. And Vallis, yes, he was relatively a conservative choice, I guess. And, Brandon Johnson is a paid agitator for the teachers union. People say, Governor J.B. Pritzker, he's the dictator of Illinois, and the Chicago Democrats, they're all that's where the power resides. No. The Chicago Teachers Union is where that power resides. And I saw it so clearly here in Bloomington Normal because we had Ben Matthews, who's the IEA rep here locally, get in front of a Bloomington City Council candidate when one of our student reporters went and tried to ask him a question at an open house forum. One of our student reporters wanted to ask John Wyatt Dannenberger a question about him breaching military standards back when he was in the Army and how he didn't show up for a rape victim, although he was supposed to as a special victims counselor, an attorney representing her in this case. So he wanted to go ask him some questions. And Ben Matthews, the IEA representative here locally, steps in front of that reporter and says, no, you can't. And then you've got the assistant manager for WGLT also stepping in front of that student reporter in this brown ballroom, the ISU student brown ballroom, which the student reporter pays for via tuition dollars and taxpayer money. That's so clear that the teachers union here in the state of Illinois runs things. If you've got somebody stepping in front of a Bloomington City Council member from avoiding questions from the media, that speaks to their level of power. They've got people everywhere scattered throughout the state to make sure everything goes smoothly. It's a well-oiled machine. Now, Brandon Johnson, he's a paid agitator for the teachers union and a defund the police type guy. And he's been expediently running away from his own words on this subject of defunding the police because it's not a winning narrative. Because people know that defunding the police will not help them get the crime off of the streets. People know that won't work. Defunding the police won't work if you want to stop having crime, stop seeing people die, stop having a war zone in Chicago. Now, Brandon Johnson and his allies attacked Paul Vallas for being anti-choice. This is what lost Paul Vallas the election. I think it's so funny because Paul Vallas is not he's not pro-life. He's not. Okay, so he has stated that personally he's opposed to abortion due to his Greek Orthodox faith, but also said very publicly that policy-wise, away from his personal position, he stands for a woman's right to choose. In fact, it goes so far as to having Planned Parenthood endorse him back in 2014 and 2002. Planned Parenthood endorsed this guy. And Paul Vallas has come out and said, yeah, personally, I'm against it, but has said that he's committed to upholding a woman's right to choose. There's no right to choose abortion, but I digress. And this guy was endorsed by Planned Parenthood. His opposition throughout this entire race kept saying that he was a MAGA candidate because he was pro-life and that he was not pro-abortion. And they tried to paint him as a MAGA candidate, which is totally categorically false. He was endorsed by Planned Parenthood. There's no way this guy is MAGA. Okay. Vallas made no apologies either for his support for school vouchers. So that was a position that infuriated the teachers union, of course. Quote, this is a Vallas quote. He says, if parents want to send their kids to private school because they believe their local school is unsafe and not up to academic standards, parents should have the opportunity to participate in a scholarship program and receive tuition support to go to the school of their choice. So he's in favor of school vouchers. And yeah, that didn't resonate with the people in Chicago. And by people in Chicago, I mean the teachers union. So Brandon Johnson is a teachers union pick. 94% of the votes in right now. We've got Brandon Johnson leading Paul Vallas by 16,000 votes. So it's 51% going to Brandon Johnson, 48% going to Paul Vallas. Now, I do want to come back after the break, and I want to run through this Wisconsin Supreme Court justice. This was a nightmare. This liberal, unseated, this conservative majority that Wisconsin had on the Supreme Court. This is going to affect us bigly because there's critical issues in Wisconsin right now when it comes to abortion and when it comes to election integrity. So everybody was so focused on the Trump indictment. Nobody was looking at this Wisconsin race. Nobody is going to win in 2024 if Wisconsin is controlled by a liberal Supreme Court. And I'll tell you why here coming up in just a little bit. You guys can tune in via our Facebook Live. I am live in studio if you want to see what I'm reading and if you want to see my notes and the numbers from last night. You can tune in via our Facebook Live. Just type in Cities 92.9 into Facebook and you can see me in studio. Be sure to leave a comment or a question and I can answer that on the other side of this break. This is the Morning Buzz.
News brought to you by
Menards. Save big money at Menards.
Your election results from normal. Alex Williams, Mark Adams projected winners in the Unit 5 school board races. Referendum to raise the district's education fund tax rate also passed. At-large town council winners are Kathleen Lawrence, followed by Karen Smith and Andy Byers. Election results from Bloomington. City councilors will be...
Okay, guys. Good morning. Good morning. Throw in the comments section if you can. Any kind of questions. And Amy Jetta, she is wonderful. So she just said, typed in, hello. Thanks, Amy, for listening. Congratulations to Amy. She called in last night via our live stream with Dave Bublin, Jine, and Kevin. You can watch the continuous coverage from last night. That's posted on our Facebook page. But Amy Jetta, really hard race for her. And what I loved about that race, her race specifically, is when she came into studio and told me the specifics about the building bond. So what Unit 5 was doing was they were saying that you were going to have a tax decrease if you voted yes for Unit 5, the referendum. That has passed. It's like 60% of the vote versus 40%. So yes, your taxes are going to increase. But what Unit 5 was doing, this Yes for Unit 5 campaign, which was totally pushed by the GM, which is really funny, R.C. McBride. He serves as some sort of board member for the Yes for Unit 5 folks, which I thought was hilarious in and of itself. But they tried to pitch that because these building bonds were falling off and that tax relief was there, that you weren't going to see a tax increase, which is technically kind of true, but your taxes are increasing. It's just that you have so much relief from those building bonds coming off that you're not going to notice such a hike within like a couple of years. But those building bonds are going to go away. And eventually you're going to start paying so much in taxes for Unit 5. And it's just like they figured out a way to instill fear into people. And I know people that voted for the conservative candidates, Amy Jetta, Molly Emery, Brad Worth, Dennis Frank. I know people who voted for the conservative candidates, but voted yes for the referendum, thinking that, hey, if they get this money, then they're going to be conservative with it if the conservative candidates get in. That wasn't the case. And I knew that was a gamble, right? And I told people, they were like, Kat, what do I do? Do I vote yes? Do I vote no? I told people straight out, no, vote no. They are trying to manipulate you and instill fear into you to get you to vote yes, because they are so scared that they are going to be, there's something called evidence-based funding in the state of Illinois. And it was actually introduced by and signed on to by Bruce Rauner, who's a Republican, right? The establishment. And basically what it does, it rewards bad behavior because that's where we're at here in the state of Illinois. And Unit 5 is shortly going to become, in my personal opinion, a Tier 1 school. And a Tier 1 school gets more state funding. So take that for what it will. When J.B. Pritzker says that he has all of this funding, he's straight up lying to you. They're funny now. It's all funny money. He just throws out numbers and he hopes that it sticks, and then people are like, yeah, JB funds the schools. He loves the schools. He threw $50 million or $500 million for K through 12 schools in his budget this year. He hopes that it sticks so that way he keeps getting reelected. The thing is that there's a reason why Unit 5 doesn't want to be considered a Tier 1 school and get more state funding to fill that budget deficit, the $12 million budget deficit. It's because the state funding doesn't exist. And they wanted to make sure that even if they become a Tier 1 school, that they have that funding, because if they don't have that funding, guess what they don't get? Their pensions, their salary band increases. They get increases. If you look at Kristen Weissel's salary, she's gotten increases. They voted yes for increases for the superintendent. I mean, she makes over $200,000 a year, folks. This is where your money's going. It's this administrative bloat, which was really funny. So sidebar. Because I can do this on the live program. I used to have a lot of liberal friends in college, and I was scrolling on Twitter and I found this one liberal friend. I'll conceal her name, and she's doing well for herself, and she's making a ton of money, and she's in this marketing firm, and she does PR for this marketing firm. I was like, that's kind of interesting. What does this marketing firm do? Who do they market for? Can't find who they market for, like companies. Usually you'll have like a list of advertisers that you market for. Can't find any of the actual advertisers or companies that they're working for. But get how many public relations people they had, or PR managers or marketing managers that they had. They had about 60. 60 people doing the same exact job. Right? That's when I say administrative bloat, these are the people who are drinking their matcha lattes, and they're going in and they're doing yoga and they're not actually doing anything. And this is the failing of the bigs. It's Silicon Valley Bank. The reason why they failed is because they invested so much money into these startups, Am I Queer? These apps that maybe like, a startup company that says, Am I queer? And you take a quiz and you find out if you're queer or not. Like those types of apps, right? The stupid apps. They invested all that money into those startups, and those companies actually don't do anything and they don't make profit. And then all of a sudden they're like, we don't have any money. It's the same thing with administrative bloat. We throw things at like DEI departments, diversity, equity, and inclusion departments, and all of that. And then we're all stuck wondering, where is the money going? Well, it's the administrative bloat in these stupid departments. I got to get back on air, folks, but be sure to throw something into the comments if you've got questions. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. You can text me at 309-451-9299. You can also call that number. How are you feeling post-election? I would love to hear you and get your take on the election last night. Okay, basically, long story short, everybody is a Democrat, and they all voted for the Democrats, and they voted for the socialist Marxists yet again. Your dog catcher is a Democrat if you live in Bloomington Normal. Hayworth schools, and a lot of these rural areas, a lot of them go uncontested, these municipal elections anyway, so we didn't follow those as closely, but they looked to be on the up and up in the rural areas. The school board elections. But last night, the big thing was that Unit 5 tax referendum did pass. It did pass. I'm now, the official results, because we're in an election season, won't come out until April 18th. But yeah, Stan Nord got booted off, which was devastating for me. I think that Stan Nord is probably the best politician ever. At a local level, and Stan and I don't agree on everything, right? He's more libertarian in some of his views, and I'm definitely more authoritarian. If you don't like it, then get out. That's what my opinion is on the matter. And if I was running things in Normal, I would be, there's a reason why I'm not a politician, folks, because I just say, don't like it, then too bad. I would be, I'm a very, very much authoritarian. So there is this story that I wanted to hit this hour, and it has to deal with the Wisconsin Supreme Court election. And this is probably the biggest election that happened last night. Bigger than normal, bigger than Chicago's mayoral election. And I'll tell you why here. And you can see me live in studio on Facebook Live. Just type in Cities 92.9 on Facebook. I'm live right now. I want to dig into this story because I feel like we were all distracted with the indictment, that we weren't paying attention to these important races. And this is how the Democrats keep winning. They win races like this one. So the Democrat-backed candidate defeated her conservative opponent in Wisconsin, the Supreme Court election last night, giving the left a majority over the body that determines critical issues such as abortion and election integrity. There's a lot of things in Wisconsin right now on the docket, and this is going to be big. So in a contest that smashed spending records, and this is why I also pulled this, because this was a very heavily invested race on both sides. We had Daniel Kelly. He's the former justice of the state Supreme Court. He lost, so he did not win his re-election, to Janet Protasewicz. Janet Protasewicz. She's a circuit court judge from Milwaukee County. So deep blue area in Wisconsin, Milwaukee. by approximately 10 points. So it was kind of a small lead, but she definitely won. And her victory marks the end of an era of Republican control in that state. And this state has been embroiled in political strife over the last decade because of this Supreme Court, because they've led the conservative justices. The majority has led 4-3. So it's a very narrow majority. And that was in jeopardy after the retirement of this justice. Her name is Patience Roggensack. And Wisconsin is one of 14 states where Supreme Court justices are directly elected and are granted 10-year terms upon winning. Another state, Illinois. And your Supreme Court justice is so vital. Like they right now, our Supreme Court justices, what they're deciding on, no cash bail and whether or not to take your guns away. That's what they're deciding on. And we've got 2 justices, and I actually know one of them personally, Mary Kay O'Brien. So I grew up around her. She was actually in the PTO with my mom, a parent organization with my mom when I was growing up. And she's funded by Pritzker. Her campaign was funded by Pritzker. And these justices make such big decisions. I mean, the gun ban here in the state of Illinois, that is going to affect a lot of people. It bans rounds over 15. I forget the exact language of it, but it basically bans very common guns that people use. And it's a gun grab, and they're taking away your Second Amendment. And that is before the Illinois Supreme Court. And they have very important decisions to make, just like the one in Wisconsin. So these judicial races, they need to be nonpartisan, but they're really not, folks, because we saw that ever so clearly with J.B. Pritzker maxing out his campaign donations to 2 of the Illinois Supreme Court justices that got in this last go around in the 2022 election. But they're supposed to be nonpartisan. Political affiliations are made clear by the support extended to a particular candidate or political parties, so via funding, right? And these judges are funded. The spending this year in this year's race has shattered records. So get this: the previous record was an Illinois race for Illinois Supreme Court justices. This was a previous record with the spending amount of $15.4 million. That's how much we threw in as a state at Supreme Court justices in 2004. It was an Illinois race. And then here in the Wisconsin race, we've got $28.8 million. That's how much was spent in this race with Daniel Kelly and Janet Protasewicz. Janet Protasewicz and Daniel Kelly. Daniel Kelly being the conservative and Janet being the liberal. Okay, so Democrats saw the election as a chance to end the Republican rule that has been in Wisconsin for quite some time. It began when Governor Scott Walker had a victory in 2010. Now, his win was followed by the enactment of laws that weakened unions and implementation of state legislative districts that favored Republicans. So he was a Republican, Scott Walker. Now, all these decisions were approved by the Supreme Court that conservatives had control over since 2008. So they were, doing what the Democrats do. They rubber stamp things. Now, this race was also seen as a litmus test for the issue of abortion nearly a year after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue back to the states. Over the coming months, Wisconsin Supreme Court will resolve a legal dispute over the state's 1849 statute. So there's a statute out there which basically prohibits abortion in almost all situations. And it should be left up to the states, right? But now this changes things. This 1849 statute, there's been a legal dispute over it, and now it's probably going to go to the liberals. So Wisconsin is going to be a pro-abortionist state, whereas they weren't before. Election integrity is another crucial issue in this election, right? With the court poised to play a crucial role in deciding the rules for the 2024 election. So here in the state of Illinois, there were a lot of rules that were broken as far as state statutes, election laws, and things like that. In the 2020 election, the election was stolen. And there were a lot of rules that Wisconsin said, hey, these are the rules that we're going to have in place in 2024. And guess what? Those rules are going to be broken, bent, and shattered because now the court is liberal. So I follow a columnist, and he ran this story a few days ago. And I'm going to read it on the other side of this break. We should have paid attention to this Wisconsin race a little bit more, I think. And I think that they could have won it. But she won very, very marginally, this Janet Protasiewicz. She's a liberal. On the other side, this is the Morning Buzz also coming out this morning. Did you hear? NPR was labeled as U.S. state-affiliated media by Twitter. I've got that story next here on the Morning Buzz. You can see me live in studio on Facebook. If you guys tune in, you can type in Facebook, Cities 92.9, and you can see me in studio, and you can look at all of my show prep. I've got graphs, charts, all that good stuff.
One thing I know is true. The news is being brought to you by the Deep End Tap and Eastland Suites. Unwind tonight with drink specials and some local brews at the Deep End Tap.
Your election results from Normal. Alex Williams, Mark Adams projected winners in the Unit 5 school board races. Referendum to raise the district's education fund tax rate also passed. At-large town council winners are Kathleen Lawrence, followed by Karen Smith and Andy Byers. Election results from Bloomington. City councilors will be Janet Kearns, Kent Lee, and Donna Bolin. All ran unopposed. Projected winners are John Wyatt Dannenberger and Cody Hawkins. Meanwhile, Mark Wiley, Belinda Harvey, and Courtney Trunbull were elected to the Bloomington School District 87 board. Bloomington Township passed the fire protection referendum. Illinois Department of Corrections holds several hiring events this month. Kim Howard reports.
The job fairs are in locations like Dixon, Chicago Heights, Springfield, Davenport, Peoria, Danville, and more. Department Recruitment Coordinator Brittany Ott says they need corrections officers, nurses, and social workers, and that there are opportunities for advancement. Ott says you can find local hiring events on the Department of Corrections social media sites or on the website idoc.illinois.gov.
News on the air, on the web, on your app, and on Alexa. I'm Tom Davis.
Here's the Bloomington Normal Forecast on Cities 92.9.
I'm staff meteorologist John Weatherby. Severe thunderstorm watch. Showers and thunderstorms likely, mainly before 2 o'clock. Some storms could be severe. Large hail, damaging winds, then later mostly sunny. Temperatures falling to the upper 50s.
The weather's being brought to you by Wireless DataNet. Stop putting up with crappy internet. Switch to Wireless DataNet with no contracts. Try them risk-free for 30 days with their money-back guarantee.
There's a bar divided in Central Illinois.
Hey, this is Pat at the Long Branch again. Come on down to watch the St. Louis Cardinals while you enjoy a cold beer and some great food. Pizzas, tacos, fried chicken, and beef brisket are just a few of our daily features at the Long Branch again. So head on out to Cooksville to try something new as you cheer on the greatest team in Major League Baseball, the St. Louis Cardinals.
Hey, I'm Ricky, and I don't even get to talk about my Chicago Cubs.
We don't need to mention them.
The Long Branch again, a bar divided in Cooksville.
It's been a slow turnaround, but the car and truck inventory is beginning to catch back up. Your new Chevrolet Buick.
Hear me? Okay. So this bill was called HB 3337. And HB 3337, what it does is that it changes a state statute that talks about incorporated towns, which Normal is. And it's 25,000 people. Incorporated towns, they have to elect a town clerk, supervisor, assessor, and collector. One shall elect those positions. There was a battle here in Normal about getting those positions on the ballot, and Judge Mark Feilheimer shut it down, and he said, because of home rule, you don't have to have those positions as an incorporated town of over 25,000 people. So now Sharon Chung has a bill to amend that state statute to where it only applies to the town of Normal, where now in the language of this amendment, it says that the town president, which is effectively the mayor, can either appoint or elect or his trustees. So in the 2027 election here, we might be seeing Chris Coons as the only person on the ballot, where these trustees can just be appointed, rubber stamped by the mayor. And here I have a list of 21 people who are appointed by the mayor, and nobody got a say about these appointments. This was just minutes before these people were actually appointed. There was no notice to the public who the mayor wanted to appoint. They rubber stamped these names. I don't know who these people are, but it would have been nice to know before they actually made the appointments. But Karen Smith, she was a proponent of this bill, HB 3337, that's basically takes away your voting rights. That's what it does. Takes away your voting rights as a voter, and it makes it to where you get one option, and that's the town president. You don't get to vote for your councilmen anymore. Those will be appointed positions. Could be appointed position. I shouldn't say would, but it could. The language affords that to Chris Coons to make appointments of the trustees now. And mark your calendars, folks. April 5th, Kat told you that most likely these trustees will be appointed in the future. So mark your calendars. That's going to start happening. And Karen Smith was a proponent of that bill. What also I want to mark and make notice of is this proponent versus opponent thing. So once a bill is in Springfield, there's no getting in. If it's Democrat sponsored, it's law. That's the majority that they've got in Springfield. So Sharon Chung just drafting the bill in and of itself makes it law. So it was in committee, and there were over 200 people who opposed this bill. You want to know how many proponents of this bill there were? About 40. So 200 to 40. You tell me how that math checks out. Seems like more people were opposed to the bill than for the bill. So you would think that, oh, well, the people have spoken. Maybe we should pull the bill. Maybe we should pull this amendment. No. They pushed it through, and they even said, we're not going to even read the names, because in Springfield, if there's opponents, you have to read the names of the opponents out loud. And they waived that procedure, and they said, we're not going to read the names of the opponents out loud. Yeah, that's what happened. I got to get back here. This is the Morning Buzz. Tune in. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. You can text in at 309-451-9299. Biden is sending $500 million in arms to Ukraine. I missed the part where Ukraine was deemed the 51st state of the of the United States. I missed that part. And this just in, some breaking news. I'm going to share my screen with you here on Facebook Live. You can see me in studio on Facebook Live. I've got this breaking news of the Nashville shooter, this transgender shooter, left a suicide note. And the authorities are going to refuse releasing details. Yeah, one could imagine, right? Where's the manifesto? Well, authorities have confirmed that this suicide note exists. Its contents have not been disclosed. And I get it, like, to a point, you don't want to release everything in the manifesto because you don't want to create copycats. But folks, there's already copycats. We need to know if this was a targeted attack on Christians, so that way Christians everywhere can start to prepare. So we've got the Audrey Hale, the transgender shooter, who was hopped up on synthetic hormones, testosterone, which does crazy things to women, and nobody talks about it. It's like taking a boost of cocaine. It makes you crazy confident. That's what happens to women. You get this boost of confidence, and women can't handle that because they don't go through puberty. I mean, men, they have the entire block of puberty to go through testosterone boosts like that, to try to manage it and try to understand it. That's what puberty is for. And when you give it to a full-grown woman, 28 years old, you give it to a woman, there's going to be some issues and we need to talk about that as a country, as a community. Should we be giving people who have emotional disorders, gender dysphoria, synthetic hormones, and should we be giving them those? Because it makes them dangerous. So this just in, there is a suicide note that has been confirmed. The Nashville police department reportedly found a suicide note left by this trans-identifying school shooter, Audrey Hale, during her search of during the search of this now deceased assailant's home. So they've been pouring through everything at her house. Authorities confirm that the note exists, but they're not going to disclose it. They're not going to disclose it. So according to NBC News, on Tuesday, authorities released a list of items discovered at the home following the shooting. There were several journals, a shotgun, cell phones, laptops, a suicide note. This was planned. There were also old photos and yearbooks from the Covenant School where this Audrey Hale was a former student. Now, we've got this suicide note, we've got the manifesto, and what I think happened, and this police chief, right? The police chief got out and said, hey, we've got this manifesto. There was a note in the card that she had, and he, said this is what it looks to be targeted. She attended the school before. She was even there's been a former pastor of the Covenant Church who has come out and said that she was receiving counseling from Scruggs, the lead pastor there, where his daughter died. His daughter died in that shooting. And, I just wish that they would release something, but they won't, because it's in the FBI's hand. There was this tweet, and I'm going to share it with you, and I might get in trouble here. There was this tweet where it talked about, the manifesto. The FBI won't release it because they're still writing it. Yes, it looks very bad for Audrey. It looks bad for the Democrats that they've got one of their rogue transgender domestic terrorists, because that's what it is. It's domestic terrorism. And I'll look up the definition here, but domestic terrorism, they've got one of them rogue, and it looks terrible. So they're trying to cover it up. And is the FBI editing at least the manifesto? Maybe not writing it, but editing it? Yeah, I think so. Or they're just not going to release because they don't have to. Text in 309-451-9299. I've got to take a quick break, but when we come back, I've actually got this really funny clip for you. Tom Elliott, he got all of these clips together. The media, they're like, it's such a sad and somber day that President Donald Trump is being indicted. Shut up. You guys are celebrating. You guys are, oh yeah, he's being arrested. And just like impeachment number 2, impeachment number 3, Russia hoax number 1, hoax number 2. Shut up. On the other side, this is the Morning Buzz. You can see me live in studio. Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in to the live stream. So, have you got questions about last night's election? And have you got questions about today's show? Comments about the news of the day? That was breaking news. There was a suicide note found in the home. They are not going to release it. Also, Biden sending Ukraine $5 million more in arms. It's like, what? They can gag Donald Trump, but they can't gag all of us. And I think that Donald Trump, and I've actually got, I think, my MAGA hat somewhere around here. I got a MAGA hat, and that's how we're all feeling. I want to get my MAGA ad out, place it on my head. Look, I don't care what you say to try to gag us or try to discourage us. This is going to be the biggest movement in the biggest conservative populist movement that you guys are, and you won't know what would have hit you. So we've got 16,000 more campaign volunteers volunteering for Donald Trump, and then he's also got $8 million more funded to him. And real quick, throw in the comments section. I'd love to find out: are you pro DeSantis or are you pro Trump? Pro DeSantis or pro Trump? I'm curious. Throw it in the comments section. But yeah, a big shout out to Amy Jetta, big shout out to Stan Nord, Brad Worth. They all fought really hard battles. And, being an outsider is not easy. It never comes easy. And one of the highlights from this election that I will always forever remember is that I've never gotten a threat from an attorney to not publish a story. So I bring up the gag order. You're not going to silence Yeah, and you're not going to silence uh, me and this movement and the outsiders. Because if they say you're an outsider, if they say, come after you with opposition, the corrupt political system, I think that means you're over the target. So one of the highlights of this election was when I got a letter from Andy Byers, who is now going to be a town councilman, unseated Stan North. That was by design, folks. They wanted Andy Byers in there. Was when I got something from his Chicago-based attorney saying, "If you publish this statement, we're going to come after you for recoveries and damages." And I got that, and I thought to myself, "These are Chicago lawyers. They are not messing around. They are going to come after me with everything they've got." And I didn't even publish the story. I just asked Andy a question of, "Hey, why is the Secretary of State saying you're not ethics compliant with your lobbying?" Because he's a lobbyist for something called Recall Strategies, which is a Chicago, Washington, DC based lobbying firm who lobbies on behalf of green energy companies. That's a fact. He's a lobbyist. And I don't think people realize that they're voting for a lobbyist. I don't think people realize that they're voting for John Wyatt Dannenberger, who uh, was called out by not one, not two, but three U.S. military judges for breaching ethics or military standards, lying, lacking candor, and deflecting blame on a rape victim. I don't think people realize that that's who they're voting for in these elections. They just see, oh, Chris Coos sent me a letter, and I have to do what Chris Coos says because he's part of my political party. I don't think that the Crystal Abels, the Corey Burns, I don't think that they realize that that's who those people are. Because I know Crystal Abel, you've got to be pro woman, right? I mean, and deflecting blame on a rape victim who got a conviction in the U.S. military. And I mean, you have John Wyatt Dannenberger, who was supposed to represent her at this hearing and then lied to everybody, said that he was going to go to the hearing and that he was going to go to this training. But then he lied to the people at the training saying that he was going to go to the hearing. But then this guy's all the way in Spain on leave with his family. I don't think that they realize that that's what's going on because Democrats, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who the person is. It doesn't matter. As long as they have the D in front of their name, that's who I'm going to vote for. And that's all that they see. That's all that they see. I'm going to pop back on. This is the Morning Buzz, and I'm going to run through this story and share with you Tom Elliott supercut that he made. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. You can always text in at 309-451-9299. Now, I wanted to share with you a supercut by Tom Elliott. So Tom Elliott is from Grabian Media, and he is absolutely hilarious. And this is a hilarious cut because it just shows you how the media, it doesn't matter what goes on. They will do whatever it takes to make sure that the talking points are out there. And, remember when the House Democrats began to cheer when then Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced the impeachment of President Donald Trump? They were like, yeah, the impeachment. And then Pelosi shushed them and she reminded them what a sad and solemn moment it was. And you'll have people from the establishment, i.e., Nancy Pelosi, say, hey, this is the talking point that we're going to go with, and you guys need to follow it. And they just will. They just will because that's their government media. So this is a supercut where the media says, we're so sad about Trump's arrest. This is such a sad and solemn moment. Let's take a listen. Here we go. It goes on. It goes on and on and on and on. And the point here that I want to make is that it is a sad and solemn day. But the reason why it's a sad and solemn day is because our justice system should be free of politically motivated indictments. And that's exactly what they're doing to Donald Trump right now. Um, yeah, the media. Oh, so sad. Imagine Adam Schiff, who spent 5 years trying to find anything to pin on Trump, so desperate that he fell for hoaxes promising proof of a Trump crime, actually pretending to be sad about the indictment. This is sociopathic evil. And I just want to say, don't give up, folks. Don't give up. At the end of the day, God wins always. And it's just going to take some time. You're an outsider. Wear that name as a badge of honor and just continue pushing. Now, one more thing I wanted to play for you. This is Donald Trump, a supercut or a cut, really, where he just says, don't give up. Don't do it. Just don't give up and keep pushing no matter how hard this corrupt political system goes against you. Here we go.
Durham probe into the Russia collusion hoax.
President Trump has just been impeached on both Article 1
The
and
only president of the United States to be impeached for a second
January
time.
6th committee releasing its final 845-page report.
Former President Donald Trump has been indicted.
Remember this: nothing worth doing ever, ever, ever came easy. Following your convictions means you must be willing to face criticism from those who lack the same courage to do what is right. Relish the opportunity to be an outsider. Embrace that label. Being an outsider is fine. Embrace the label, because it's the outsiders who change the world and who make a real and lasting difference. The more that a broken system tells you that you're wrong, the more certain you should be that you must keep pushing ahead.
This is a party that wants an outsider badly.
I continue to believe Mr. Trump will not be president.
You must keep pushing forward. Never, ever give up. There'll be times in your life you'll want to quit, you'll want to go home. I can't do it. I can't do it. Just never quit.
Never quit. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz, and I'm Kat Peterson. You can see me live in studio on Facebook Live. Just type in Cities 92.9 on Facebook, and you can see me live in studio and all of the show prep. That's going to do it for us here on the Morning Buzz. Now, breaking news, I did see this come out yesterday. A CBS reporter physically assaulted this independent journalist, and this has to be said. The only violence yesterday was when a CBS reporter at this employee assaulted and threatened to kill another journalist reporting at the courthouse. And now CBS is trying so desperately to cover up what happened. Should we let them get away with that? Should we let CBS get away with that? And yeah, I thought that there were independent journalists. Yeah, you just attacked somebody yesterday in New York City. The CBS employee did. You guys have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye. I love you. Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in to the live stream. Do you guys like the lives? Do you like the Facebook lives? Throw it in the comment section. And yeah, news today, just to wrap it up in a nice cute little bow for you. So it turns out Amy Roser, Kelly Pyle, Mark Adams, Alex Williams, they're going to be the Unit 5 school board candidates. And then we also have Kathleen Lorenz, Karen Smith, Andy Byers. They're going to be the normal town council candidates. And then John Wyatt Dannenberger and Cody Hendricks, those guys are going to be the Bloomington City Council members. And then Courtney Turnbull. Then we have Mark Wiley and Valita Harvey. Those are all going to be the District 87 school board candidates. Now, running unopposed for Bloomington City Council was Kent Lee. And then we also had Jenna Kearns. They ran unopposed, and Donna Bolin, and they all got on to the Bloomington City Council. So that was basically the election yesterday. Also, the Unit 5 tax referendum passed with yes, basically 60-40, somewhere around there. That was our election. So If you have any questions, feel free to give me a text. It's 309-451-9299. Thanks so much for joining me on the live stream, and I'll see you tomorrow.